I'm going to divide this video into 3 distinct parts so you get the full picture. 1, we will analyze the escalation, where a local officer attempts to use intimidation and a John Doe loophole to bypass the Fourth Amendment. 2, we will cover the shocking twist where the power dynamic completely flips, leaving the officer realizing he just walked into a federal operation. 3, and finally, stay tuned for the third part because I'm going to break down the lawsuit, the legal analysis, and reveal exactly how much money this corrupt behavior is going to cost the department. We are talking about a massive settlement. This video isn't just about a confrontation. It's about understanding your rights when the badge is used as a weapon. Let's get into it.
Is for a guy that I know it's him, but right now officially he's just a John Doe. That gives me full jurisdiction, even though I know who he is, to take him down and get him investigated. And
the interaction begins in a hospital room, a place where privacy is usually paramount, protected not just by social norms but by HIPAA regulations and the Fourth Amendment. We see a local police officer enter with an incredibly aggressive posture, immediately accusing the man standing guard of having hero syndrome. This is a classic psychological tactic used to destabilize a subject before any legal ground has been established. The officer's objective here is clear. He wants access to the patient in the bed, whom he refers to as a John Doe. This is a critical legal fumble. By admitting he doesn't know the identity of the person, but claiming he has a BOLO, be on the lookout. For him, the officer is trying to manufacture probable cause out of thin air. He claims the patient matches a description, but without a warrant or a positive ID, his presence in that room is already constitutionally shaky. The man in the black shirt and cap remains calm, acting as a physical and verbal barrier. He correctly identifies the officer's behavior as an overreach. The officer then attempts to pivot his aggression toward the guardian, demanding his ID. This is a stop and identify trap. In most states and under the Fourth Amendment, you are not required to provide identification unless there is reasonable articulable suspicion, RAS, that you have committed, are committing, or are about to commit a crime. Standing in a hospital room is not a crime. The officer knows this, which is why he threatens to take the man downtown to process him. He is using the threat of arrest and the inconvenience of booking as a tool of coercion. He explicitly states, "I don't need warrants. I don't need nothing." A statement that should send chills down the spine of any American who values civil liberty. The officer is operating under the assumption that his authority is absolute and that he can bully his way through the law. He tries to frame the guardian as an accessory or an accomplice solely because he is exercising his right to remain silent and his right to refuse a warrantless search of his person. The tension here is palpable because the officer is so confident in his immunity that he admits on camera that he is going to arrest the man just to ID him, which is a violation of the law known as a pretextual arrest or unlawful detention. He is digging a hole for himself, professionally and legally, with every word he speaks, completely unaware that the man he is threatening is not a random civilian, but someone holding a card that trumps local municipal authority entirely.
with me, you have those 2 options.
Officer, I am a federal informant, a federal agent.
The dynamic in the room shifts dramatically when the man in the cap decides that the officer has crossed the point of no return. Up until now, he has been giving the officer an out, warning him to lower his voice and leave the room, essentially offering the cop a chance to de-escalate and walk away with his career intact. The officer, blinded by his own ego and the need to assert dominance, refuses to listen. He mocks the man, calling him funny, and doubling down on the threats of arrest. That is when the guardian reaches for his neck. In a moment that is pure cinema but grounded in very real legal stakes, he pulls out a badge. He isn't just a concerned family member. He reveals himself as a federal informant or agent working directly on a federal case. He drops the hammer. This man is under a criminal RICO case. For those who don't know, RICO, Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is federal territory, often involving organized crime, and it carries the highest level of clearance and protection. The look on the officer's face isn't visible, but the shift in the room's energy is instant. The John Doe the cop was harassing is actually a federal witness or asset under protection. The local cop has just walked into a federal investigation and attempted to compromise a witness. The guardian explains that the officer's mere presence in the room is a violation of federal jurisdiction and is endangering the operation. This is the moment the officer realizes he is a small fish in a very, very big pond. The arrogance evaporates. The "I don't need warrants" attitude is instantly crushed by the supremacy of federal law. The guardian's tone shifts from defensive to commanding. He orders the officer to "get the hell out of this room." It is a satisfying reversal because it exposes the officer's bullying for what it was: weak, unconstitutional bluster. The officer's justification for being there, the BOLO, the John Doe theory, completely falls apart. He wasn't chasing a criminal. He was interfering with the United States government. The badge reveal proves that the man knew exactly what the law was the entire time. He wasn't obstructing justice. He was upholding it against a rogue officer who didn't respect the boundaries of his own job. The officer is forced to retreat not because he wants to, but because he has been checkmated by a higher authority.
And get the hell out this room.
All right, I know who he is. He's going away for a long time.
Now let's look at the numbers and the legal fallout, because this is where the real damage is done to the taxpayers. When we analyze this from a liability standpoint, the officer committed several egregious civil rights violations. First, we have a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment regarding the unlawful detention of the guardian. The officer explicitly stated he would arrest the man solely to identify him, without articulating a valid crime. This pierces what is known as qualified immunity. Qualified immunity protects government officials from lawsuits unless they violate clearly established statutory or constitutional rights. Arresting someone without probable cause just to get their name is a textbook violation of clearly established law. Furthermore, the invasion of the hospital room and the attempt to search the patient without a warrant is a violation of the patient's expectation of privacy. When you combine unlawful detention, threat of false arrest, and the interference with a federal investigation, the lawsuit potential is astronomical. In similar civil rights cases where officers have ignored the Fourth Amendment in a medical setting, settlements often range in the high 6 to 7 figures. For this specific interaction, considering the distress caused, the violation of rights, and the potential compromise of a federal RICO case, a lawsuit would likely target the department for failure to train and the officer individually. We are looking at a settlement demand that would easily start at $1.5 million. The city would likely settle for roughly $450,000 to $750,000 to avoid a jury trial, because playing this video in front of a jury would be a guaranteed loss for the police department. The jury would see an arrogant officer bullying a man who was actually doing a more important job than he was. Beyond the money, the internal affairs investigation would be brutal. Interfacing with a federal witness after being told to leave could cost this officer his badge permanently. The RICO element adds a layer of complexity. If the officer's actions compromise the safety of the witness, he could technically face federal obstruction charges himself, though that is rare. The takeaway here for everyone watching, especially those over 25 who understand how the real world works, is that authority is not unlimited. Just because someone wears a badge does not mean they can rewrite the Constitution. This federal agent or informant showed us exactly how to handle a tyrant. Stand your ground, know the law, and wait for the right moment to play your hand. The officer thought he was the predator, but he was actually the prey in a jurisdictional trap he set for himself. That $1.5 million lawsuit isn't coming out of his pocket. It's coming out of yours, the taxpayer. That is why we must demand better training and accountability for law enforcement. Thanks for watching, and stay safe out there.